Hi again. This next section, this second section, deals with the frequently asked questions page, or pages I should say, and the about the curriculum page that follows that. We have a couple of pages of frequently asked questions, and I've gotten a lot of comments over the years that many applicants really benefit from these pages of frequently asked questions because they say things like, you know, if you don't know a whole lot about a field, it's hard to know what are the good questions to ask. So here's a couple of pages of really good questions to ask. And we'll talk about some, but not all of these. The first ones we want to talk about are actually the second one and the third one listed. How much does a radiation therapist earn, and are jobs available for radiation therapy? Well, first off, I gotta say that I am absolutely firmly convinced that anyone wanting to get into radiation therapy, anyone wanting to be a radiation therapist, has to do so, has to want to do so, because they want to help people. That's got to be the primary motivation. If you don't want to help people, if you're just wanting money, if you just want salaries, then you're not going to be good for your patients, you're not going to be a really good caregiver, you're not going to be good for your co-workers, you're really not even going to be good for yourself. So you've got to really look carefully at your motivations for wanting to get into this. You've got to want to help people. That's got to be first and foremost. I'm absolutely convinced of that. Still, that being said, it's kind of nice to get some information about, well, am I going to be able to find a job and pay my bills and stuff when I graduate? That's important to talk about too. So these second and third questions address that. How much does a radiation therapist earn, and are jobs available for radiation therapy? The good news about the job market for radiation therapy is that the salaries are, in fact, really quite good. Typical starting salary, really just about anywhere in Texas, is about $25 an hour, give or take a little bit depending on geographic area and cost of living and stuff, but it's usually something really pretty close to $25 an hour, which is roughly a little more than $50,000 a year. Not bad for a 2-year degree. So there is income to be made in radiation therapy. You're not going to be rich, but that's not why we do this. So the salaries are really quite good. If you think about it, that salary is really more than the entire typical family makes in the United States. And that's just one person's starting salary. So not bad at all, really quite good. Because of the high salaries that have come about in the last several years, really, there used to be a huge shortage of radiation therapists in the late 1990s for a lot of different reasons. But that shortage kind of raised the salaries up, and as salaries go up, that attracts more people to want to go into radiation therapy. I don't think it's good that people get into radiation therapy for the sake of salary, but that's just kind of what has happened to some degree. So the salaries have gone up, and that's drawn more people into the field of radiation therapy. A few more schools have opened up, and that's made the supply and demand come into more of a balance, really, to where the job market now is a bit more like what I think most people typically see when they graduate from university, where we were spoiled for a few years a few years back, where our students could graduate and really go work just about anywhere, really, and there would be a job waiting. There was such a drastic shortage. Now the students have to be more like what a university student does. They have to prepare a nice resume, hone their interviewing techniques, and go out and sell themselves. And we talk about this kind of stuff, we always have actually, in our program. We talk about interviewing, we talk about resume construction, and all those kinds of things that kind of help you land the job that you want. So there has been a tightening of the job market, but my students that have graduated, I think Amarillo College has a really good reputation. I think that really helps. We've got a lot of our own graduates out there, especially around the Texas area, and those people are now, many that graduated maybe 10 years ago, are now in supervisory positions or hiring positions, and they know that we have a good product in our program here at Amarillo College, and our students tend to get hired really quite well. Really about the only time that students from our program don't get hired, usually we have about 10 students a year graduating or so, and we usually have maybe one student with one circumstance or another that has difficulty in finding a job, but most of our students are able to find jobs and do just really quite well. In fact, all of last year's students found jobs working in radiation therapy. One of the things that can limit somebody in their ability to find a job is that regardless of how wide open the state or national job market might get at one time or another, or has been at one time or another, finding a job in the Amarillo area has always been pretty tough because we've got this program cranking out graduates, many of whom are from the Amarillo area, and many of those would just as soon stay around Amarillo if they can because of family or whatever. And that means that with the few limited positions that we have in radiation therapy in the Amarillo area, there's only something around 15 radiation therapists in Amarillo. The only way to get a job in Amarillo is if one of those 15 people just happens to be quitting or retiring or whatever right as you happen to be graduating, and that you maybe beat out the 3, 4, 5 or however many other people from Amarillo that want to stay in Amarillo for that one job. So the chances of getting a job in Amarillo has always been really, really difficult. It's always been really, really tight to find employment in Amarillo. And I always, always advise anybody wanting to get into radiation therapy to be as open as possible to moving to different areas. The more open you are, the less limited you make yourself geographically, the more opportunities there are. In fact, the main reason why anybody might not find a job in radiation therapy would be because they limit themselves usually quite dramatically with respect to circumstances like they have to work in Amarillo. Maybe they've got a spouse or family or whatever reason they have to work in Amarillo. Then they're left waiting for a job opening to happen, and that creates some difficulties. I can think of one other student many, many years ago who had difficulty finding a job in radiation therapy. He had special circumstances. He went into radiation therapy because his wife wanted him to get a quote-unquote real job. He wanted to be a dancer. That's where his passions were. And so a couple of months before graduation, well, they got divorced, and he approached me and said, Tony, I never really have wanted to do this. I was just doing this for the sake of my wife, and since we're not together anymore, I'll go ahead and finish school and graduate, but I'm not ever even going to look for work in this field. And to this day, I understand he's one of the choreographers or artistic directors of the Fort Worth Ballet, if I'm not mistaken, and more power to him. So people under circumstances like that, or people who limit themselves really radically geographically, those are the people that have a hard time finding employment in radiation therapy. Other students can't be as picky and choosy as they used to be. Again, we put together good resumes and stuff, but these students have been able to find jobs that they really like, jobs where they want to be. So that's a lot about the job market. One other thing I think worth mentioning about the job market is that on January 1st, 2009, there's a rules change for people in my position in radiation therapy. As of that date, program directors like me have to have a master's degree. I've got a master's degree, so I can keep my job. I got no worries about that anyway. But I kind of have been talking informally with some other program directors here and there as the opportunity arises. And some of them tell me, why should I spend tens of thousands of dollars getting a master's degree so that I can continue to make less money than my students do when they graduate? Teachers don't get paid very well. I love teaching though, so this is what I want to do. So I kind of think that can have an impact on the job market over time, because it might be very possible that some schools will have a hard time finding program directors when their current program directors quit or retire or whatever because they don't want to do that master's degree thing. And if schools close down, that means there's a lower supply of, a lower influx of students or graduates entering the job market. And if there's fewer students entering the job market, then I can't help but think that could help open up the job market some more. I don't have a crystal ball. I really don't know exactly what's going to happen or how this is going to manifest or impact, but I can't help but thinking that the job market will be positively affected by this rule change beginning January 1st, 2009. So this is the first part of the radiation therapy frequently asked questions part, and I forgot to give you I think I gave you the keyword. Well, the keyword is tiger. If I haven't mentioned that already, the keyword for this time, or the only keyword for this particular one, is tiger. So now we'll move on to the second part of frequently asked questions.